I'm Gauri Shankar. I take care of the product management of IT operations suite of products. It is also called as full stack observability. The short form is FSO. So today I'll talk about how to keep your digital infrastructure always available, resilient, and always on. So when we say digital infrastructure, it consists of a lot of other things, right? So here I'll tell you what are all the important aspects of it, and I'll be talking about workloads. So I'll spend some time in explaining what workloads are, right? And inside the workloads, I'll give some high importance to websites, because I'm not sure what kind of audience we used to get. So we wanted to highlight the websites of it. I know there are a lot of other aspects running behind the websites to make your digital infrastructure up and running, but we will focus on websites and give some additional use cases to make sure your websites are up and running, right? And how your users are interacting with your websites, your services, and what kind of experiences they get out of the services that you offer, right? And then in the same websites, I'll give some additional use cases and scenarios to make sure your websites are secured, right? So that no one is going to hack it. And even if someone is hacking, what kind of precautions that we need to take. Those scenarios I will explain. And then I will move on from digital infrastructure to physical infrastructure. Say you might be running a business with multiple stores or multiple branch office. You might have some monitoring needs on those locations, right? I'll talk about the devices which are needed to run those stores, and some wireless networking, wireless troubleshooting related use cases. So this is my agenda. So as you said, the workplace and workforce, yes, they are important. But what in case if the workloads, the devices that are used to run your digital infrastructure, could be routers or switches or network devices, databases, applications, websites, if they are not properly managed, if they are not properly maintained, if you're not managing the uptime and availability and performance of those workloads, whatever processes you have done, right, it may not be enough. Your business is going to have a problem, and it will result in customer experience. Definitely, the customers will say that some issues within the tool, and you'll be reacting a lot than working on the innovative things. Similarly, if you're not following certain processes, your brand reputation is going to be a hit. So that's why workloads are also important in the grand scheme of things. All right. So when you say websites, right, most of your customers will log into the websites that you have and the services you offer, but they will see only the front end of it. But there is a lot more than what you see. That's where a smooth user experience, it depends on what businesses don't see, because end user will see only the websites and the user interface, but there are a lot of other things, right? So in order to run a website, what are the things that you need, right? So most of you would have run some web service, right? Websites. So what do you have for a website? Total, okay. So what about the infrastructure that are needed for running a website? Servers, okay. If it is a big, if more and more users are logging in, you need to have a lot of other infrastructures related to it, right? So that's it. So end users only see the front end of it, but in order to run that, you need a lot of back-end equipments that should be servers or storage devices or databases, applications code, virtualization, cloud service, etc. So this is what I meant by workloads, right? So if the performances of these workloads are not properly maintained, if you are not following proper best practices, your end users are going to affect. All right. So as I said, I'll be giving more importance to websites. So 73% of small businesses have a website. So most of you will have a website, right? So in case if those websites are not running properly, customers will come and say that it's not working, and it is going to be a problem. Similarly, a small SMBs like you will have a SaaS application. So you are here just because you have a Zoho application that is SaaS, and if there are any performance issues, definitely it will be notified, right? So similarly, if you have any web service, if you are not offering a proper service, the problem will be escalated. It will be amplified in the social media and other stuff. So it will be a problem and it will affect the brand reputation. So if you want to run a proper digital infrastructure, you have to make sure your websites are running always on, available for your users. And when the users are logging into the website, you have to make sure that the experience is good. And similarly, you have to protect the businesses from vulnerabilities or external threats. And also, you may have some other important devices to run your business. You have to make sure they are up and running and they are performing well, right? So with that, I'll go through some of the scenarios, right? Some of the use cases that we normally get in support, right? So here, a scenario is a company using a website, and they allow the users to log into their web service website to order something, right? One fine day, they're not getting orders from the customers, and they do not know why, because they do not have any processes or best practices running on it. But they took some time, identified it, and then found that that website was not running. It is not up and running, so the customers are not able to run it. Why? Because the admin or the web developer made some changes in the website. They uploaded a huge file, say 5 MB file on the website and the home page, that made the website slow. It was working in some locations, but not in other locations. They when they tried to access it from a mobile app, it was slow. And also when they try to access it from a remote location where the internet is less or the speed is less, they were having some problems. What should be the best practice? They should have followed these. They should have invested in tools that could give the website availability of it. Similarly, they might be running the website here, but customers might be in multiple locations, right? You might have a business in Houston, but you might have customers accessing it from New Jersey or SFO or from some other countries like India and Australia, right? So you have to make sure that your customers are able to access your websites across the globe. You should have some options in the tool. And then you have to know how fast the website is loading. And then you should understand if the website is slow, you have to understand what are all the factors. It could be the scripts or images or the text that could slow down a bit, right? So you have to understand, you have to break down the problem and then see what is actually taking more time. So these are all some of the best practices that company should have followed, but they didn't. So then after the problem, they're investing in the tools that could give this. So this is actually a screenshot from one of our solutions called Site 24/7 that has an option to monitor its website availability. It can tell you how long it is up and running. It can tell you the response time of it, and it can tell you what are all the from which locations that website is actually up and running. So we have 120 locations. We have the tool that can probe these websites across the globe from 120 locations, and we can have a clear idea of the website, whether it is up and running. So this is what I mentioned. From the globe, you can monitor it. And when I say the website loading time, it could be a problem in the website itself, or it could be some issues in the place where the websites are being loaded. If from New Jersey, if the Comcast ISP is having a problem with the DNS, it could be an issue, right? So in some other places, it could be the response time. So we have to understand these problems. Even for a small website, you have to understand these problems to give a better experience for the end users when they log into it. So this tool provides all these information. And then the last one I mentioned is the contributing factors. In the scenario that I mentioned is a 5 MB file, which created the slowness. That took a lot of time to render the page in the website. That was a problem. And here we have the solution to split or break down the components that are taking more time, and we are able to identify and fix it. So this is one example in monitoring websites. All right, let's move on to the next one. The same company. You take the same company as an example. They have invested in solutions that monitors the uptime and availability. But still, in some other scenario, their customers are not able to place the order, right? They check the website, yes, it is up and running. But when they dig deep, they found out that when they try to place the order, they have the cart, they search the objects or components that they want to purchase. They put those devices or put those objects in the cart. From the cart, when they try to check out, the checkout is not happening. Some transaction is failing, but the customer is not able to understand why, right? So this was the problem. The website is up and running, but there was some problem in one of the transactions from moving the objects that are placed in the cart into the checkout. And the payment gateway was having some problems, and it took some time for them to understand where the exact issue is, right? So what would be the best practice in this scenario, right? They should have invested in the tools that could give how their end users are actually logging to it, what kind of sequence they follow in their websites, and understand it. So in case if there are multiple sequences, they should track each and every sequence, how long it took uh, from them to click from one link to the second link, from second link to third link, and how long it took from the third link to the placing the order. So these are all some of the sequences, some of the transactions that we need to keep track of. So for this particular problem, our tools, Site 24/7 is having some options that can be utilized to understand the sequences of it. So we call that as synthetic monitoring. It is like understanding the user journey in the product, in the website. So as a user, you'll be following certain process, right? You'll log into it first, and then after logging into it, you'll search what you want, and then select those devices in the cart, and then finally you will do the checkout. So these are all the user journey. We have to track these user journeys and then record them, and you have to play back in specific browsers, in Chrome or in Firefox. We have to play it, and then we have to do the simulation from multiple locations. Since I said we have the options to test these from multiple locations, from 1 to 120 locations, we can serve the user journey and try this in multiple locations to understand where the exact problem is. This is what I said. From login to product search to shopping cart, log out, and payment gateway, if everything is working fine, yeah, the customers will not lose any money. But if there is a problem, it will have an issue. So, the example, last night, I was ordering something in Uber Eats. Everything was fine. I was selecting my food items. Everything was fine. When I tried to place the order, it went blank. It said something went wrong. So you would have faced the same thing, right? So if that happens, that problem might be for 30 minutes or 1 hour, but it could be a huge loss for a company like Uber, right? Yeah, they are losing the business. So we have to keep track of all these things, and you should automate. These checks are happening every 5 minutes across the globe on all days, 365 days. So even if there is a problem, you will be able to get notified of this, and you should be able to fix it. So this is what I wanted to convey. All right, now let's take the same company and the same website. This time, they have invested in tools for uptime and availability. They have invested in tools for monitoring the user behavior, user journey, etc. But still, this time, they have a different problem. Now, when they get the queries from the customer, they say that I'm not able to place the order. I don't want to place the order because it is showing some errors, especially SSL, not secure errors. Normally, when I log into any website, if it shows some SSL errors, I will not buy the product. I will not even look into the website. It should be the same for you, right? If there are any security errors, you should not log into that site. Similarly, this was the case, and because of that error message, customers stopped buying from their website. All right, so what was the issue? They should have renewed the SSL certificate of the website, but somehow they missed it. And similarly, there was another issue. They should have renewed the domain of the website, but they didn't do it. So if we miss those things, definitely it could be a very small task for them, but if you miss it, it will be a very huge problem for the company. You are losing the brand reputation, right? So for that, we have some simple options inside the product which can tell you when my SSL certificate is going to expire. So it is certified to whom, certified by whom, to which company, and how long it will take for the license to expire. These are all simple use cases, and you can get the alerts before it. So do you want to get the alert 10 days before it or 15 days before it? That kind of automations can be done. And even there is an option to auto renew the license. Similarly, the domain expiry, you have an option to notify it, and you also have an option to uh, renew the domain on its own. It can talk to the domain provider and renew it on its own. So these are all the simple use cases, simple solutions that we have inside the product to solve those use cases. All right. Now, again, we are moving to the fourth scenario. Again, it is related to website, the same company. So they have done all those changes, but still, this time they have a different kind of a problem. So when they looked into it, the customer says that when I log into your website, I see completely strange messages, completely strange images, text, some links that are taking me to some other websites. What would be the problem here? They have logged into the website. They expect something to be there on the website, but the messages, the texts are totally different. What could be the problem? Right. So someone would have hacked the website. They are trying some phishing attack. It has happened in the past. Normally, during some war times between the countries, right? Uh, they will try to hack the government websites or websites of the enemy country and try to make a lot of changes, right? So that is one of the phishing attack. And if this happens to any banking websites, it will create a huge problem, right? So they can track the username and password. From there, they will redirect that username password to some other sites, and they can do all sort of scams. So this is very important. If this happens, that's it. That company can go bankrupt. That is one of the very, very severe issues. But before this happens, we should have some mechanisms to understand it, right? So we need to have a tracking mechanism that tells that the website has been changed, the content has been modified, right? So if we have that option, at least we can reduce the impact. Instead of 100 users, 1,000 users reporting it, we should be able to fix it within few minutes. So there is an option to identify the website defacement or content changes. In case if there are any unauthorized content changes, we have an option to identify it and roll back to the previous the normal settings. So it can tell you whether anchor tags have been changed, or if there are any changes in the text, or if there are any changes in the link, etc. Right? So this is one of the important aspect or important security feature in protecting the websites. And it is also a similar one. It is to it also checks the content of your website and tells that something has changed. You want to change it automatically, you have an option to revert to the previous settings or get an alert and identify whether it is an authorized change or unauthorized change, right? So you have an option in the tool to identify and fix it. All right. So before moving to the next scenario, I would like to show that in the product. Can you see the screen? You want me to maximize it a bit? So this is the product I was talking about. Whatever the use cases or scenarios that I mentioned is is specific to this particular module, right? In web, you have options for website monitoring. Here, when you add a website, it can tell you the details of whether that website is up and running. And if you scroll down a bit, you can tell that what are all the time taken for each and every website loading process. Some DNS text, uh, connection time, and then SSL handshake, first byte time, etc. So since it breaks down the important metrics, you can, if there is a slowness, you can identify and fix it. Whether it could be a problem in the website itself, or it could be an issue in the ISP. You have to talk to the ISP and handle it. And if you scroll down, you can see the list of locations. From each location, how long it took to load the page, right? So this is with respect to simple website monitoring. And the second one is the transaction. As I said, you have to understand the user, uh, what do you call user journey, right? The customer is logging in, and then he is clicking a particular link, and then moving to a different place and selecting some products and putting putting the objects in the cart, and then ordering it. So you can save, we can record those user journeys and then find it out. See, here the graph shows that first step is loading, second step is clicking the second link, and then adding to the cart, fifth step, and seventh step is placing the order. So we can track down each and every transactions and how long it took. In case if there is any abnormal behavior, if it takes more time for ordering, there could be some issues, right? We can drill down where the exact problem in the user journey and address it properly. It could be something to do with the website, or something to do with the database and other stuff that are running behind the websites. So these are all some of the things that you can monitor it inside the website. And now I mentioned about the security, SSL security, and then domain, what is it? Domain expiry and SSL certificate expiry. So these are all some of the simple features inside the Site 24/7. You can add a monitor that could tell you how long, when the certificate is going to expire, and to whom it is uh, registered to, etc. And the security details as well. Similarly, you can go to domain expiry, and that will also give you some additional details. The thing here is you don't have to, just rely on alerts coming out of it. You have an option to notify the right users, and if there is an option, you can also have an option to run some workflows that could automate few steps. All right, so the screens, the options that I told us is very specific to websites, and I shown the demo from the Site 24/7. And there are few additional use cases, but instead of going through it, I would like to show the on-prem version of our monitoring tool that is called Op Manager Plus. Have you ever heard about this Op Manager in the past? All right, so it is one of the flagship product inside the Manage Engine. It is very similar to Site 24/7. Site 24/7 is in cloud, whereas this is on-prem. So, as I said before, IT infrastructure is not just website. There are a lot of other things to be considered, right? So, if you are running an organization, if you have multiple devices to be monitored, it could be normal servers, network devices, switches, routers, and firewall. You have an option to discover all of them, right? So you have this discovery. So you have an option for network discovery. So it can sweep the network and find what are all the devices in it and add them inside. If you provide the right credentials, whether you want to monitor using SNMP or WMI or any API credentials, you can just discover it, and that will bring all the devices inside. And also it can talk to your Active Directory and fetch what are all the servers running on it. It can also use the Nmap that is inbuilt within the tool and identify some of the IP addresses. Could be routers, could be switches. It can identify the MAC address of it and tell that is a Cisco device. It is a Fortinet firewall. These are all some of the identification process that we have, and bring those devices inside the inventory. So these are all some discovery mechanism, whether you want to add Meraki, whether you want to add Cisco ACA, SD-WAN devices, everything can be done. Whatever you have in your IT infrastructure, everything can be discovered and added inside. So once you build the inventory of your infra, then you can start monitoring it, right? Monitoring in the sense, it can be normal uptime, availability of those devices, right? And then you can also go deep into it and check what is the CPU of it, what is the memory of those devices, etc. So let me go into it. So here you have the list of devices that are discovered by Op Manager here, and there is a firewall. Op Manager discovered it, and it can give you the availability, packet loss, and response time. And if you scroll down, you can see the uptime, number of tunnels. So because it is a firewall, we have this VPN connected to it, right? So it can also tell you the details about number of tunnels up, down, etc. So this is with respect to normal SNMP. It is also having an option to monitor the traffic. Say you have an organization, right? And this organization is having multiple locations, site A and site B. You have to communicate with site A and site B, and there is a VPN or site-to-site VPN or some other network connectivity you have between these sites, and you have to transfer a lot of data between these two sites. But sometimes you know that the data that you send is not huge, but still there is a bandwidth choke. You have to understand what kind of traffic that is flowing from site A to site B, right? For that, we have a solution called NetFlow Analyzer. What it does is it understands the traffic, and it also tells what kind of application is flowing from site A to site B. And in case if there is a huge application spike, it can clearly tell you. So from which source, which IP address the traffic is being generated, to which destination that it goes. So these things can be given with the NetFlow Analyzer data, right? So these are all the top applications. So one of the use case, an interesting use case that we had from a customer in Australia, they were having multiple sites. Some traffic is flowing from site A to site B, but every now and then the bandwidth was choking. They do not know what exactly is happening, right? They increased the bandwidth a couple of times from 10 MB to 50 MB, some 100 MB. They increased it, but still they are not able to understand why it is. They installed our product. That product was running. It was reading the flows, and then it could tell that it was because of some MS SQL logs, right? Logs was moving from one location to another location. That was choking the bandwidth, and it was able to identify that application, and they fixed it, and it was able to save the bandwidth cost. So it was one of the important use case. And we also have the config management part of it. The config management, you might be having a lot of network devices, right? Okay, so there is a situation like if you are an enterprise with hundreds of devices or thousands of network devices split across multiple orgs, right? You have an organization policy, right? You have to stop SNMP v2 configuration on those devices. You might have a compliance policy that you need to adhere to, right? So, say, for example, I said SNMP v2, you have to stop using SNMP v2 is one of the complaints, and you are asked to stop it. So, what do you do in this case? Will you be logging into each and every router and disable that configuration? No, you can't, right? It'll take some 30 days or a month, more than that, because you have to log into each and every console of those routers and switches and make those changes. It is not needed. We have a solution called the network configuration management. What it does is it takes a backup of all those routers and switches, their running config, backup config, etc. And it can also push the configuration on those devices. So if you want to remove SNMP v2 configuration, you create a configlet and push it. That configlet will be executed in all those 500 switches and routers, and that will reduce or that will remove the SNMP v2 configuration. So this is just an example, but there could be a lot of configuration compliance policies like this that can be executed with the module called Network Configuration Manager. So it can tell you the list of devices, it's the running config, backup config, whether the backup was taken at the right time or not. Are there any conflicts? You can have some baseline, and if there is a deviation in the baseline of the configuration, it will alert you. You also have an option to roll back the configuration to the baseline. Everything can be done within this particular module. It's a very powerful module if you have network devices in your org. All right, so now let's move on to these are all some of the grouping of devices. So let me tell you the device templates. Right, I was talking about the discovery mechanism, right? Every network environment will have a different set of devices, starting from Windows devices to Linux devices, routers, Cisco, Fortinet, Aruba, and Huawei. A lot of devices from China is also being used in multiple countries. So Huawei. So we have to identify those devices and properly classify when you discover them, right? When you do a network discovery, it is not just the normal IP addresses. We have to understand what type of device it is, what vendor it is, what serial number it is, what service tag it is. Everything need to be identified. And we have a very powerful discovery mechanism that does all those classification and then adds that inventory. So it is so powerful in identifying and classifying the device, right? So as I said, after discovery, it uses the proper credentials and monitors everything. That's the basic part. But most of the SMBs right now, what they want is they want to build the CMDB. You have any experience in building the CMDB, right? Okay, but in a mid-size environment, CMDB is a must. This Op Manager helps to identify the connectivity of them. So CMDB is nothing but identifying the connectivity. You have some business service running. That business service is having a website. It is running on a server, and it is having a database, and it is also having a load balancer, and it is having a firewall, switches. So these things are interconnected in a business, right? Business service. Our tool does this discovery part, not just the discovery of those elements, it also understands the connectivity of them, the relationship between these objects. So that is very important in a IT environment. So we not only just discover the assets, we also understand the relationship of it, and then build the map, the organization map that clearly tells how these devices are interconnected, etc. Right? So this is how we can. So these are all it was not manually created. It is created by our tool. It say for example, you might be having a virtualized environment, right? Uh, VMware, Hyper-V, etc. You have. Okay, so in case if you have, there is an option to discover the vCenter server that automatically identifies the ESX and the VMs behind it. Similarly, any parent-child architecture, it understands the relationship of it and then maps all these things. So you just discover the devices, mapping is done automatically, right? So this is what I wanted to explain within the tool. I have basic two other use cases. So something like I was talking about the websites that was for digital infrastructure, whereas this one is physical infrastructure. So you have multiple stores or multiple locations, right? And each location is having it's a store, and each store is having some point of sale devices and some other devices. But when the point of sale devices or the devices used for billing is having a problem, right? The wait time will get increased. If the wait time increases, the customers will have to wait for 5 more minutes or more than that. They'll get frustrated. Even the sales guy will get frustrated, right? So we have to understand why those devices are taking more time, and if there is an option, we have to identify and fix it. So this particular problem can be identified by our tool Op Manager. It can identify the availability of the POS devices. Performance degradation can be identified, and sometimes the problem might be with the point of sale devices or with the store itself. So each store will be connected to ISPs, right? So we cannot rely on one single ISP. We have to go with multiple ISPs. So in case if ISP is having a problem, we have to identify it. And similarly, when you are adding the bill, that data has to be uploaded in the server that could be running in the data center. So we have to identify and monitor that capability as well. So with this, the demo that I have shown, right, that is capable of monitoring the hardware failures of it, whether it is up or down, whether it is any performance issues, it can identify. And similarly, it can also identify the WAN IP of your stores, your locations. Multiple locations will have different ISPs. Each ISP will have a WAN IP, and it can tell you. So here, these locations are fine. Dallas is having 5 ISP connection. They are fine. Houston is fine. Austin is fine. But Chicago, there is only one ISP that is having a problem. So these are all the sites. And inside the sites, you have multiple WAN IPs, that is ISPs, and you have a dashboard to identify where the exact problem is, right? And I think we are moving to the last scenario here. If after COVID, right, so most of the customers didn't have local LAN connection. They are moving to some uh, WLC or wireless controllers, especially Meraki was one of the vendor, very famous. Cisco acquired them. Most of the customers are moving to Meraki cloud. They have a controller in the cloud. They can push the configurations from the cloud to each and every store access point. You don't have to make any manual changes in the access points in the stores. So here the scenario is one particular store was not able to connect. There is a dashboard. They have a Meraki dashboard, but that was not properly giving the information. The best practice would be to discover the Meraki infrastructure in your monitoring tool that could give you the clear visibility of how your access points are connected, what kind of configurations are pushed to those access points, etc. So this Op Manager has a solution that can clearly tell you the list of access points that are connected to your org, right? And if there are any configuration problems, it can identify and tell you. And also, inside the access point, you'll have some signal problems, right? So even in this hall, if this hall is completely full, you'll have some access issues, right? Signal to noise ratio issues, the other performance issues, number of clients connected to the access point. These are all some of the basic metrics. If you're missing it, then it'll affect your users. This product can identify and fix all those problems. All right, so now this is a complete overview of what I have done. So I have explained what workloads are and I have given importance to websites, and I have told you what need to be done on those websites to make sure that it is up and running and how it could give better performance for your end users, right? And its security as well. And the last two points are related to physical devices. I gave the example only for simple point of sale devices, but it could be more. It could be routers or switches, databases, applications. It could be anything. This tool can go deep into it and identify all the performance issues and inform the admins about it. All right. And as I said, we have all these functionalities that I mentioned can be achieved by two of these products. Site 24/7 is the cloud version of the tool that I mentioned, and Op Manager is the on-prem version. So if you have Site 24/7, Zoho Access, the Zoho login that you have, using that you can log into it and try all those stuffs. In case if you have most of the on-prem environment, you can download and install Op Manager in your organization. Thank you.